Okay. I'm going to start. Okay. Welcome everybody to our, I don't even know what number Siyum this is, but our Siyum
26.
Masechet Shevuot.
26.
Again, we'd like to dedicate the Siyum to the complete refuah for my mother, Bela Freda Bat Hanyamina, Barbara Osman, who usually comes to these Siyums, and hopefully by our next, well before our next Siyum, she will be out and well on her road to recovery.
Amen.
And we want to just thank everybody, I think, for bearing with us. For those of you who just joined, things have been a little hectic with my mother in the hospital and getting stuck in America. And we know some of our episodes have been a little bit later than usual. And we just appreciate everybody sort of, bearing with us and still listening to us and learning with us. And I think the thing that I'm going to like most comment on, like when God willing, we finish with this cycle. I don't want to say finish with Daf Yomi, but finish with this cycle is like, I think the anchoring of saying that you're committed to learning some Torah every single day is like a remarkable ritual and anchor for your life, especially when things get very tough.
Yes.
I think we sort of felt that throughout COVID and after
Yeah.
October 7th. But I think when I've personally gone through like an actual real personal crisis, I really felt that in like a very, very different way. So that's sort of my introductory remarks. In terms of Masechet,
I just want to add to
yeah,
that.
sure.
Both your Dana and I are kind of planners. And so when the planning, and we have a routine, give or take, we have a routine for when we record and how we record, and things can go awry, but it's been relatively stable, give or take. And then this past little bit has been less stable. And it's thrown me. I can say, I think that when I remember Masechet Shavuot, and I've learned parts of Shavuot intensively in the past, I feel like I'm going to remember exactly what you've just said, Yordina, that it became this anchor, although I'm not sure that the difficult passages eased my way through. It's a tricky and challenging Masechet in terms of the complexity of just even the overlapping pieces of sugya without trying to make heads or tails of Rishonim and trying to do anything be'iyun, in a greater depth. So thank you for bearing with us. Thank you for joining us as always. And as we say, some of you I know are going to be watching this on the recording. Um, we appreciate all of you. You keep us going.
Yes, very much so. And we know that this was like sort of an unusual, it was an unusual Masechet, just first of all, structurally, the way that it was like very heavy Mishnah and then sort of Gemara afterwards. I think the way that it doesn't really get into the topic of Shvuah till about the third parak. And I think it's also like Anne just said, the conceptual piece of it, I think this is not a Masechet that lends itself well to Daf Yomi, is how I would sort of say it.
Yeah.
I think it's difficult to do up, and I see a lot of people nodding in agreement with that. It's a difficult masachet to sort of learn at that fast of a pace. And I think for me personally, it felt like one of the masachta where I'm like, I definitely need to go back to this one. Okay, so without further ado, we will start with our Talking Talmud in residence poet. I love that we get to say that. And also, I'll just actually, we'll just share that Anne and I were actually so crazed. We usually like a week before we email Leanne and we always say, will you do a poem? And of course, Leanne says yes. We actually forgot to email Leanne. That's how busy things were.
But
And then
Leanne
Leanne emailed
knows.
us.
She
And we said, of
knows.
course,
We all
Leanne, we
want her
want to hear from
poetry.
you. So it was our bad. And we're very, very lucky that Leanne, of course, had something to share with us. And we apologize that we would not be a Siyum without Leanne. So I'm going to pin her quickly.
Um, thank you. Thank you both for everything and for guiding us during these many years that have been so difficult. And I hope you'll bear with me through this little thing. I'm not sure if it works or not, but okay, give it a try. Let's see what happens. Okay, with no introduction. I was inspired by those two students who were within the DAF who were testing each other. I just thought that was the coolest thing, that we were on the DAF and they were on the DAF and we were all there together. So here we go. The sixth day, an imagined creation story for Masechet Shevuot. On that sixth day, God created man. When God created the mouth of man, God also created the ability to speak, to laugh, to cry out for help and in sorrow. When God created the mouth of man, God gave him the ability to tell truths, but also to bend the truth in many directions. And on that same sixth day, God created the eyes of man. God gave man the ability to see, to observe color, shape, and form, and discriminate between forms. Within those eyes was also placed perspective, how we see things, sometimes clearly, sometimes blurred, and sometimes eyes that judge for good or for not.
Get the face the shower.
God created hands.
Oh,
God
the
enabled
garden.
a myriad of actions to work, to build, to raise, to take, to give, and even to create. When God created the heart of man, God filled it not with just blood and as a mechanism to pump, but to love, to hate, to care, and have the ability to trust. But also there were kernels of suspicion and doubt. And in that heart, an overwhelming needs were planted to possess and to have and have and have yet more. When God created man's mouth, God gave him the ability to speak of topics both mundane and important. But along with the power of speech came the ability to tell truths or lies, to bend the truth, either by design or innocently. And on that very important sixth day came the potential and the nuance in language, description and precision with so many terms and notions, whys and hows, warnings and whines, questions and statements and promises and even oaths. So many types of promises and oaths. And then if that was not enough, finally for our purposes, we learned who may speak, who may witness, who may offer testimony, who is counted and who is not, and who can we believe? How to find the truth when there is a doubt. Perhaps Masechet Sanhedrin was on the mind of the Creator that sixth day when the first human was created. Perhaps God foresaw the complications of language and of perceptions. So the Creator foresaw also a future of scholars and thinkers, doers and debaters, intent upon a range of solutions, spoken and then recorded and read until this very day. All this happened on the sixth day of creation, and what a day it was. Now to Masechet Shevuot, here we are, together again. We'll always come back to you, Masechet Shevuot. We always do. Zeu zeh.
Thank you, Leanne. That was great. I think what you honed in on is that I think really Masechet Shavuot, if I think for many of us, or at least for me, and that's the piece you picked up on, is really sort of at the discussion, like the discussion between the Talmidim and between us and the Taf, and less about the practice. Like this, this felt like a very halachic theoretical daf, and how do we engage with that type of halacha? Okay, Anne, let's on to
I
our.
first wanted to ask everybody to mute.
Sorry, everybody needs to mute themselves. Okay, Anne, I will let you introduce our
Dr.
speaker now.
Shanashik. First of all, I don't know if you can, let's pin you, Shauna. Dr. Shana Strout-Schick is a dear friend, which I'm going to say is the most important thing about her. No, I'm kidding. You may know her as the first woman to receive a PhD in Talmud from Revel at Yeshiva University. She is also a lecturer in rabbinic literature at the multidisciplinary Department of Jewish Studies and Talmud at Bar Ilan University in Ramat Gan in Israel. She teaches Talmud and Jewish law at Drisha Institute. She's made a name for herself in teaching bat mitzvah girls as well. She is the author of a book called Intention in Talmudic Law, Between Thought and Deed, and an upcoming monograph entitled Women in Rabbinic Law and Narrative, Vying Currents in Babylonian and Palestinian Text, and that's due out by Brandeis. I am very much looking forward to that second book, having already seen the first one. And Shauna, it is my pleasure to welcome you to our humble gathering here. I know that this is maybe going to embarrass you, but that's okay. Shauna makes a siyum of a masechet at the birth of, or has done so, I guess, at the birth of each of her children. She has four. So that's I think, enough credentials for y'all to understand why we're so excited that she's joining us today. And she made a siyum on Masechet Shevuot a long time ago now, right? She's like 14, 15.
16.
16. Okay, there we go.
In
16
October,
years
we'll be
ago, on
17.
the birth of one of her daughters, she made a siyum on this Masechet. So for all that we have found it challenging at this pace, just imagine pregnancy and making a siyum at the same time, and you'll understand just how talented Shauna is. Thank you for joining us. We're looking forward to hearing from you.
Thank you so much. It's really such a privilege to be here. Luckily, unlike Anne, I did make it back to Israel, and I got on a flight Thursday night. So really feeling very, very lucky right now that I got that flight. And Anne said it's really very special, such a privilege, because I did make a siyum on Masechet Shevuot when my daughter was born. October, it'll be 17 years ago. This is very close to my heart. I wish I can say I remembered all the learning I did with Shavuot. I don't know. Yeah. But I thought I would talk about an aspect of Shavuot that actually it's mentioned in a passing and then ends up being discussed much more in other Masechtot. So, can I share my screen? Thank you.
You should be able to.
Yes, you
Let's
should be
make
able
sure
to
you have.
start out.
You know, I wasn't able to a second ago. There we go. Okay, so I'll just share this. Going to be our starting Gemara. And it's about, of course, we know, you've been learning Masechet Shevuot. So if there's one thing it's one thing you took away from it, hopefully, is that one witness is what obligates a person to take a Shavua, right? To take a vow. And I want to talk a little bit about what one witness can accomplish, right? Because in general, we need two witnesses, but one witness, so what can one witness do? We know Eid Echad Ne'eman B'Isurim, one witness is reliable when it comes to a Isser V'Heter kind of thing. So someone can eat in your house. We trust you're a kashrut. The source of this is a woman who is a nida. She is a trustworthy, that a husband or someone in times of Tumah and Tara can rely on her to say, I'm Tme'ah, now I've gone to the mikvah and I'm Tahora. Okay. One witness is also allowed in a case of an aguna to prevent an aguna happening. And of course, what's important for us is Eid Echad Mechayev Shavua. One witness is what obligates the litigants to take a Shavua when it comes to monetary law. And the source for this is the Gemara that we have, right? You have in front of you. Amar of Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar Shmuel. So Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, he is a fourth generation Amora, and he said in the name of Shmuel, first generation Amora. So he says here, Lo shanu ela b'ta'anat malveh behoda'at loveh. Okay, so we only teach this when the malveh, the lender, has made a claims, hey, you owe me money, behoda'at loveh. And the lender, the borrower admits to it. Aval ta'anat malveh, behoda'at eid echad, afinu lo tanu ela bepruta chayev. But if the lender and one witness say, hey, you owe this person money, okay? Meaning, when do we believe the lova? If the lova admits to it, right? And you saw that sugya, if he partially admitted to it, right? Hoda be'mikvat, then we believe the lova, okay? And we think he just needs more time, or if the lova denied it all, we believe him because no one would be so terrible to deny a loan to a person who was nice enough to give them a loan. Okay, but in the case of atanat malveh hodat idachad, if the malveh, the lender says, hey, you owe me money, and there is a witness that's verifying, one witness that verifies this loan happened, afilu lo tanu ela bepruta, even if this person only admits to it was only about a pruta, that's what they're arguing about, chayev. Okay, that person, the love would have to take a vow. My tama, what's the reason for this? Tichtiv, for the Torah says, Lo yakum eid echad beish, l'chol avon u'l'kol chatat. So the Torah says one witness does not work. One witness is not effective to make a claim against someone. L'chol avon u'l'kol chatat. Okay. So says for any sin, or another word for sin. Okay. So says the Gemara here, l'chol avon l'chol chatat hu de'eno kam. One witness is only not effective when it comes to a sin or punishing that sin. Aval kam hu lishvua. But one witness is effective to obligate a person to have to take a vow. Vitanya, and it's taught in a Breita, kol makom sheshnayim mechayivim oto mamon. Any place where two witnesses would work to obligate you money. I mean, so two witnesses say that Anne, sorry, looking at me, owes me money. So one witness would work in that same situation to obligate someone a shavua. So meaning one witness has only been excluded from the Torah, meaning one witness is only ineffective to mete out a punishment. You need two witnesses to punish someone, okay? But one witness, as we all know, does work to obligate a person to take a shavua. Okay, so that is the power that one witness has been given. They can obligate a person to take a shavua. That's the most that they can do, but they can't do more than that. So there's a question, very lumdus question, which is, okay, so we know a witness can obligate someone to take a shavua. We know that. That's what this whole Masechet, I mean, a lot of it has dealt with. But the question is, can one witness also exempt a person from taking a shavua? Do they have that same power? Okay, so this is not really discussed here. This is discussed much more in Gemara and Bab Metzia. And what I have open here, Kiddushin. So, it's Kiddushin. Okay. So we're gonna move to another Gemara in Masechet Kiddushin, which is the jumping off point for a Machloket Rishonim, to talk about the power of one witness. Okay, so thanks to Sparia here, we have the source right here open. Okay, so of course we're in the middle of a discussion here, so but we can just start here. So we have a case where two people have paid a seller for an object. Okay, they both paid the person, and so if they both paid the person, that means that they both want it. They're both claiming that they own this. So the question is, who gets it if they're both making this a claim? Okay, so let me find them. Okay, so says the Gemara here, Ne'eman Bal, Mikach, apparently that's a chirek, I didn't know that. So the owner, the original seller, Ne'eman Bal Mikach Lomar, the original seller is believed to say, Lazeh macharti, but lazeh ein macharti. The seller has the power to tell us who is the person he sold the object to. He said, we live to say I sold the object to this person, to person A, but not to person B. And then to give it to person A on his word. I'm going to say his because, most cases they were assuming it was a he. So then, but then the Gemara asked, Bameh devarim amurim. What does this refer to? Meaning, when do we believe the seller? So answers the Gemara, Bizman shemikacho biyado. Only when the object is in his hand. Okay. If the owner still has the object, we know he's going to make sure that he gives it to the right person, because he has the money, and then he'll return it to the other person. Okay. But if he doesn't have the money, about a michal biado, but if he doesn't have it, meaning it's a case of doing both, do daf yomi, you've done Bab Metzia, right? The two people are fighting over it and they're each pulling it, then eno ne'eman. We don't believe him. Okay. So then the Gemara asks here, okay, it's a really easy thing. Just see who he took the money from. So I jumped ahead. So it says, he took from both of them. Okay, so it's where they both gave him money. The Amar, and he says, I took the money from one of them willingly, and one of them they forced the money on me. But what's the problem? We don't know which was what. He doesn't remember, he has a good, thriving business, and he doesn't remember who he took it from. Okay, so Rashi here and in Bava Metzia, Rashi explains here. He says, Ein Yadua. Do I have the right Rashi here? Okay. Ein Yadua Lanu. Says Rashi here, it is unknown to us. Okay, so meaning what's the significance of that? It's unknown which person the seller wanted to give it to. Okay, so Rashi has this meaning in the plural, meaning it's an unknown thing. It's not just unknown to the seller, it's unknown to everyone. And why does Rashi zeroing in on Ein Yadua Lanu? We don't know. And the answer is, Rashi makes this clear in Bava Metzia, because he doesn't care if the seller knows. The seller, one person, in other words, doesn't have the power to say who gets this object or not. And therefore, what would have to happen here? They would have to take Shevuot. Okay. So this one seller does not have the power to exempt either of them from a Shevuot. They're both claiming it's theirs, just like in Bava Metzia. And the seller would not have the power to do it. If we knew, if there were two witnesses who knew, the two of us were in the store, we saw the seller sell it to person A and not person B, then that would work. But the seller alone, in Rashi's view, does not have that power. And therefore, Rashi stresses that it is lo yadua lanu. It's we don't know. So that is the view of Rashi. So we don't care whether the seller knows or not. It is immaterial. So that's the view of Rashi. But that is not the view of Tosfot. Just let me go now to Tosfot. Just got to move you all away from Rashi. Okay, sorry, Tos is going through the whole Gemara here. Sorry. Okay, so first he cites Rashi. He writes, Tosfos here, Tafilu Amar Sheyada, even if the seller knew, Lo Lehemna, we wouldn't believe the seller. Okay? Mishum Delo Rameh Meida, because Rashi says, he's not going to be careful to check. Kach Shitata Kuntrus. Umasha Pirish, Depare, okay, and so I just want to get to the right point here. Sorry. I'm going to give my excuse here then. I just got back to Israel on Friday.
All excuses are taken at this point for
Thank you.
everyone.
Please, thank you. Please, thank you. Okay. Okay. Trying to find my place in. Okay, I'm trying to find the right place in Tosfos here. Okay. I'll just go through it. Umasha pirish to paracha ein mechaviato to come in ne'eman uparach. Okay, so then the Gemara asks, "V'nechne zuze miman nakat." So then remember the Gemara says, "Why don't we just see who he took the money from?" Pirush l'toshnat mamon badai nitzratze. Because meaning, why do we check who he gave the money to? Because he obviously wanted them to have it. Okay, so ask the Gemara kashet. Sorry, Tosfot says, why would we believe this seller more than one witnesses? Okay, so we'll just jump to Tosfos. Perish Rabbeinu Tam. Bizman shmecho biado, when the seller has it, but as hu ne'eman mita'am migo. The seller would be believed to say who he had sold it to, who he wanted to have it. And because there's a Migo logic, right? Migo is something maybe you've encountered. Migo, he's incriminating himself. He could have said something a lot easier. Okay, so what's the Migo the seller has? Dematzi amar lo macharti. The seller could have just said, I never saw these people in my life. You know, I never sold to anyone. He has the object. What does the seller care? He could take the money and run. Oh, chazarti v'kanitiv. Okay, or you know, he could say, oh, well, I gave the money back. The seller is believed when he has the object because there's a migo there. He can just lie. Aval ein mecho biado ein ne'eman de'azlo shayach migo. But according to the view says he wouldn't believe once he doesn't have the object, there's no migo. Okay, so that is what Tosfot here. That is the Havamina of the Gemara. So Aval, okay, the Azoshach, okay, so that's what the Gemara was getting at. You know, that maybe if the seller no longer has the object, we shouldn't believe him anymore. Okay, uparich solechze zuze miman nakat. So then the Gemara asks, so why don't we just see who he took it from? Nihinami demecho biado amay neman imar amishlo kibamaz lazen trasish mashen neman b'chol inyan v'amay neman. So then the Gemara asks, well, why don't we just see who he wanted to have it, who he wanted to give it to? And in this case, we're asking once again, why does the Gemara assume that the seller would have been believed to say who he really wanted to have it? Okay, but okay, there's a migo b'makom edim. Okay, so what's the logic for why he should be believed here? I mean, ta'anan saadeh de la'oto shenatan hamaot nit ratzeh. Okay, I don't want to get too complicated here, but even if the seller were to have Amigo, if there is a concept here of Anan Sahade, that we are all witnesses to the fact that the person that he wants the person who has it, that he wants the person to have it. Okay. Skip through. So I just want to skip a little bit and not make this too complicated, but so according to Rabbeinu Tam, the seller would be believed as long as he had the object, because of the migo, because he could have lied about it. But if he no longer has the object, he's not believed because there's no migo, so there's no basis to believe him. Okay, so the question which underlies Tosfos here is, why would we believe the seller more than we would believe one witness? Meaning if one witness doesn't have a credibility, one witness can't give someone else money, right? I mean, we know that. So, but all one witness can do is make someone liable to make a Shevuah. So that's why the one witness needs amigo to be believed. Okay. So, but the question that's standing for Rabbeinu Tam here, I mean, what underlies his question is that the Gemara says, well, why don't we just see who he took money from? And that assumes that if he remembered who we took money from, that the seller would indeed be believed. Okay. So again, let me make this clear. If, according to Rabbeinu Tam, one witness isn't believed, then, and he would only be believed because he had this migo. I mean, if he had the object, then he has amigo because he could just lie. But then the Gemara then asks, well, if he didn't have the object, why don't we just ask him who he sold it from and we would believe him? So how, that is a question that underlies Tosfos here. How could the Gemara even begin? How could the Gemara even entertain this possibility that it would believe the seller? Would it say, oh, I remember I sold it to this person and not to that person? Okay, so Tosfos eventually answers here that the seller has the status of one witness who's able to exempt a person from a Shevuah and to make the other person chayav a Shevuah. Meaning, if there's two people arguing here, one says it's it's one, and one says it's one. Well, one of them's lying, and the owner says, "Oh, I remember I gave to this person, not to that person's." Well, Rashi said we would never believe that person because and the Gemara isn't saying we don't remember who said, isn't it? The Gemara isn't saying the seller doesn't remember. According to Rashi, it's we're saying we don't remember. There's no two witnesses here. Whereas Tosfos is saying no. Even the seller, if he remembered who he sold it to, then we would believe him. Because one witness has that, because this seller is tantamount, is the same as one witness, who can both obligate someone in a Shevuah and, according to a Tosfos, exempt someone from a Shevuah. So, according to Rabbeinu Tam, then, one witness has the power, of course, we always know, to obligate someone in having to make a Shevuah. That we know. That we already learned. That's what Masechet Shevuot about. But the Chiddush of Rabbeinu Tam here in this Gemara is that he even could exempt someone from taking a Shevuah. So, if they're both arguing that the seller sold this to them, the one who the owner says, oh, I sold it to person A and not person B, person A does not have to take a Shevuah, and we believe the owner. Okay, so sorry, my long way of saying that. So we have a debate here between Rashi and Tosfos about would we believe the seller to say I sold to person A and not person B? Rashi says we would never believe the seller. So when the Gemara says he doesn't know who he sold it to, A or B, what the Gemara meant was we don't know who we sold it to. There were no two witnesses there at the time who said, oh, we sold it to A and not to B. Whereas Rabbeinu Tam says, no, when the Gemara says he doesn't know if it was A or B, the Gemara means he doesn't know. Because had he known, and had the owner remembered, said I sold it to A, and I wanted A to have it, and B forced me to take the money, but I didn't want B to take it, A is now exempt from a Shevuah. And the seller, meaning one witness, has that power. So I have a little bit of time. I just wanted to explore, well, I'll do it outside, so I don't get too complicated. Another case where one witness can work, okay, or it's a debate, and it's something you maybe saw in Masechet Kiddushin. Well, this I can at least show you the Gemara on this. There's a question of, let's say there's only one witness. I'm jumping now to Kiddushin. To a Kiddushin, one witness says, I saw Abraham give Sarah Kesef Kiddushin. There's only one witness. Again, we have Amar of Nachman, Amar Shmuel. So we have another Reb Nachman again citing Shmuel. Very interestingly, it's Shmuel once again talking about one witness. Mekadesh be'ed echad there's only a couple gets married, there's only one witness. Is this a valid marriage or not? So says Reb Nachman, Ein chosheshim l'kiddushin afilu shnehim modim. Even if they both say, yeah, we want this wedding to happen, there's no marriage here, meaning she doesn't need a get, she can marry another person, there's no problem. So that is the view of Shmuel, but then there's actually a machloket Amoraim about this. So my havi'ala, so what's the din? So later Amoraim debate this. Rav Kahana says, Ein chosheshim l'kiddushin. Rav Kahana says, there's no kiddushin here, she can go marry someone else. She doesn't need a get, she can marry a kohen, everything that goes along with it. This was meaningless. One witness is meaningless. Rav Papa, however, says, no, chosheshim l'kiddushin. Sorry, she's going to have to, she needs a get, and this is gonna, cause all the, if they want to get married, great, I guess. But if they didn't, that causes all the issues that, her having this kiddushin would cause. So that's a machloket about whether kiddushin works or not, and the Rishonim are split about this. The Rambam, the Rif, the Rush, meaning the Sfaradim, down to the Shulchan Aruch, say Ein choshim l'kiddushin, it's meaningless, there's no kiddushin here. Whereas the Ashkenazim on this, the Smag, Sefer Mitzvah Gedolo, and the Yereim say, no, yesh lahachmir. It's like the worst of both worlds, and she needs a get. So there'd be no kiddushin here, okay? So the question is, what is their machloket? Why does one view think that the kiddushin would be good with just one witness, whereas the other view says it would not be good? And that's I'll bring it back to shedding light on the machloket between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam as to whether one witness works to exempt from a Shevuot. So there is a very famous Kitzot. It's an Achrona, a commentary on the Shulchan Aruch, who explains, what is this machloket about whether one witness could work by a kiddushin or not. I mean, we need two witnesses. So why would one say one witness can work and why one would say one witness cannot work? So there is a conceptual machloket about what is the purpose of having two witnesses. Okay, so can anyone have any idea why do we need two witnesses? What is the function of witnesses? Does anyone have any thoughts about what witnesses are?
You all should be able to unmute yourselves or raise your hand.
It's a davar sheba'erva. You always need two witnesses to be mekayim the kiddushin.
Okay.
To get.
So Eidei Kiyum. Okay. Are they like ceremonial, basically? They're making something happen. They're like announcing it. This thing is happening. Okay. That's one function of what witnesses do. What is another function of witnesses in a general?
Proof that it happened.
Proof, right? Exactly, proof. So that would be Eidei Havhara, right? Either witnesses function as a proof. You need two people to prove this really happened. To be proving, that I lent you money, or two people that prove these two people got married. So that's one way to view it. Or two witnesses are being mekayim. They're making this thing happen. They're making this wedding happen. Without two witnesses, they're creating a kol. Okay. The two witnesses are what created and make it known to the world. Okay. So either they are approving it, like we testify the fact that this really happened, Torah ne'emanah, or they are like effectively what's making this event happen. They're being me'akayim. Okay, so now let's plug this back to the machloket in kiddushin. You have our cases, two people are saying that two people get married, and they're saying, and there's only one witness. And they're saying, yeah, we want this to happen. we are all for this. We got married. We're good with this. Okay. So if you say that, we're choshesh for kiddushin, we say a kiddushin happened, then what might you say is the function of the witness here?
Proof.
Yeah, it's a proof. And if they're all for it, there's one witness, like, we're good. We got the proof. The couple wants it. Like, so maybe the view, maybe both Rev Papa, who says Choshishim L'Kiddushin, and the Smag and the Reim, who say, we're going to be Choshish for Kiddushin, she needs a get. Maybe for them, the purpose of testimony is to serve as a proof. And so in this case, there's one witness, there's two people. Okay, we're good to go. Like, how's this any different than two witnesses? But maybe the view who says, Ein choshishim l'kiddushin, even if the two of them, afilu shnei amodim, even if they both agree, and ein choshishim l'kiddushin, why would we not be choshish for kiddushin if there's no two witnesses? Maybe for them, for the Rambam, the Rif, and Rev Kahana, these are Ezei Akiyum. If there's no two witnesses, then there is nothing. You need two witnesses to create the call. Call is like an announcement. They are what make this thing happen. Now, can we plug this back into our machloket, Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam? Just an idea. For Rashi, one witness is not enough to exempt a person from making a Shevuot. If you're chayav a Shevuot, one witness cannot undo that. Even though, he has the money and he's saying, I want this person to have it, and the person admits to it. I mean, they're fighting about it. So A and B are fighting over it. For Rashi, one witness cannot exempt A from having to take the Shevuah. Even though I'm saying, even though I'm one witness, I'm saying, no, I want A to have it and not B. One witness does not have that power. Maybe for Rashi, the witness functions as a kiyum, so to speak. It's what's making this transaction happen. And so one witness does not have the power to undo a Shvuah deoraita. Whereas perhaps for Rabbeinu Tam, who says, if there's one witness, if there's one witness here, and we have something to go on, this witness could be believed in this case. And maybe for Rabbeinu Tam, it's about not kiyum, but about havhara. It's about clarifying. And so just like one witness had the power to be mechayev a Shevuah, because the witness had enough, ne'emanot. I mean, that's what a clarifying is about. We believe two witnesses, they're both there. If two people are there and seeing something, they can testify that it happened. The ne'emanot, which works to obligate one for a Shevuah, the credibility, is also enough credibility, which can also exempt a person from having to take a Shevuah as well. Perhaps. And so, give us a little bit of insight into the power of one witness who has that ability to, according to everyone, to create a Shevuah. That's the power that the Torah gives us. But is that power coming from this ability to create something, to create this obligation, this chiyuv, this Shevuah? Maybe that's how Rashi reads it. Or does this ability to create a Shevuah stem from, they're not like creating a Shevuah. It's a certain level of ne'emanut. It's a credibility. We don't believe you to make this person have to pay. Like, that's not fair. A person cannot harm someone to make them lose money. But one person does have enough credibility. We believe you enough that we're going to make you have to swear to what you just said. So perhaps that's what the machloket, and that is what underlies the power of an aid to obligate someone in a shvua, which the Masechet was about. And bringing it back to the Masechet Shevuot.
Thank
Right.
you, Shana.
Thank you very much. I think you really showed us sort of like how a small passage in the Masechet, like where it fits into the bigger picture of the Gemara itself. And like that would be like if we were able to learn Daf Yomi B'Iyun, like really to sort of explore it, that's what that kind of learning would look like, which is so different than our Daf Yomi learning.
Right. That is what Iyun is. I mean, and that's what a
What Iyun
Tosfot.
is.
I mean, like Rashi takes you through each line, but a Tosfot, what they were the first to do is really look at the whole Gemara and say, hey, wait a minute, let's, see how all these different sugyot fit together. So I hope that was clear.
We wanna ask if anybody has any questions for Shana, Dr. Schick.
I just, if I can, again, I don't understand that the presumption, perhaps that monetary events require a kiyum through Edim. When it comes to Davar Sheba'erva, yeah, we know, Kedushin, they do require, as we said, the Edim to make it happen. But loans, if I borrow and I don't have witnesses, but I come later and I admit, Yakamea Edim Dami, I don't need the witnesses to make the loan. I'll be believed as soon as I say I owe the guy money. I never saw an issue
Right.
of kiyum.
There's definitely, you're absolutely right. Right, but so there's definitely kiyum when it comes to kiddushin, but the Ketzot introduces the fact that maybe there's also the ne'emanut, and that's why, meaning according to Reb Papa, who says choshishim, who says if it's the couple and one witness, well, so we needed at least a witness for the kiyum, so we got that, but maybe the two also functions for Havhara to say it really happened. So that's why, according to Rav Papa, clearly not according to Rav Kahan. But Rav Papa said we're choshesh for the kiddushin. So why is that? In this case, there's one witness and the couple is agreeing to it. So he suggests maybe it's about ne'emanut. So I agree with you. And, this is just an idea. But maybe the same way we have both this ne'emanut and kiyum split in kiddushin, which is something where you need two witnesses for. We're also saying we do need two witnesses in Dinei Mamanot. And so maybe this is very achron. I wouldn't write this as an academic paper. I'll put it that way. There's a difference between academia and levels, I guess. But maybe we can take that same chiluk of kiyum versus ne'emanut, and maybe that meaning kiyum, meaning it's making the thing happen. And versus ne'emanut, it's just it's a proof. Now I'll just say, ein davo pachot erva. It's still not explaining the mechanism. That's just saying you need two witnesses to make it happen. But that principle doesn't explain why you need two witnesses, and that's what the Ketzot is coming to say. Is it? And so why do you need two witnesses? Like that. That's just the rule. But there's not the svara behind the rule. And though my Rebbe, Rabbi Khan, and my Rebbe, he was okay with not finding the Havara for things. I mean, it's the rule. That's what it says. But the Ketzot introduces this idea that maybe there's a Havara for the two witnesses, and it's different according to these two views. So it's not necessarily a kiyum according to everyone. Maybe there's also this ne'emanut factor to it as well. And that's why the view is choshesh l'kiddushin. And then I'm just suggesting that maybe we can take the same two conceptual ideas behind two witnesses that are found by kiddushin, and maybe and explains how and if one witness can work, and maybe we can also apply that to Dinei Mamanot as well to explain. I mean, everyone has to agree one witness can, we know one witness works to be Mechayev Shavua, but can it also work to exempt from a Shavua? And maybe that works as a test case to plug in this chiluk. It's just an idea. But that's how I can even suggest it.
Anybody else?
Is that clear? I mean,
Okay.
Thank you so much. We hope you'll be able to learn with us again, Dr. Schick. Thank you.
Okay, we're going
Next time I'll
to,
put in my Google calendar.
and maybe there won't be delayed flights back. Um, okay, we want to, of course, do the very last bit of the Gemara again, just to be able to make the Siyum and also the Hadran. We noted at the time that we finished this Masechet that the last daf is kind of unusual. Sean, if you want to weigh in on that, we'd be happy to hear, because it's a whole parak that's just one daf and it's the last one, and it kind of stops at the end. Like it just ends. It doesn't wrap anything up. So that already by itself was unusual. Um, and so just to very briefly recap, we have here, I'm in the very end of the daf. Gufa Amar Rabbi Ami Kol Shvua Shadayanin Mashbi'in Oto Ein Ba Mishum Shvua Bitui. Right, this is already going back to Rabbi Ami's ruling, where Rabbi Ami said that in any oath that was administered by the judges, one would not be liable for taking the oath, for falsely taking the oath on an utterance. Right, that's the Shvua Bitui, because we've got this verse, Shnei Amar. If anybody swears with his lips, and then the rest of the verse is in Leviticus chapter 5, to do evil, to do good, whatever it is that a person will utter clearly with an oath, and then it's hidden from him, and the Kohen will make an atonement. So the point being that this is a person who comes forward to take the oath of his own accord. And the Gemara says that me atzmo, of his own accord. Kedrish Lakish, as Rish Lakish said to Amar Rish Lakish, Ki mishtamesh ba'arba lashonot, I dilma ela daha. Because Rish Lakish said the term ki can be understood in four distinct ways. It can mean if, it can mean perhaps, it can mean rather, and it can mean as. Whereas according to Rabbi Ami, the meaning is just if. And then if one took the oath of his own accord, that would be when he's liable. So it lines up with Rish Lakish as a possibility. Then Rabbi Lazar Omer, Kulan pturin mishvuat shomrin, v'chayavin mishum shvuat bitui. Rabbi Lazar says all of them, meaning all of those guardians who are listed in the Mishnah, are exempt from taking the oath of the shomrim, of the guardians. They're exempt from bringing a guilt offering for taking the oath of the shomrim. But they would be liable to bring a sin offering for taking an oath of the Shvuah Bitui, the oath of utterance, except for the borrower. Chutz mi eni yodea mat, Chutz mi eni yodea mat asach d'shoel. When the borrower says, I don't know what you're talking about. Or v'gneva v'aveda denosei sachar v'socher. And likewise, the theft or loss for the person who is either hired or a renter. Shu chayav sharei kafaro mamon. Because in those cases, the guardian is liable to take the oath of the guardians because he's denied a monetary claim, which would indicate that he wants to make himself exempt from having to pay or the liability to have to pay. And that all lines up with Rav. And then we're done. Like that's it. There we come to the end of the Masechet. Hadran alach arba shomrin v'silkala Masechet Shevuot. When we say Hadran alach, we say we're going to come back to you. I think that, as Yordana said before, I certainly feel the need to do so, perhaps more than usual. That said, we did come to the end. It is the 26th Masechet that we have learned together. We have already begun Avodah Zarah, as you know. Masechet Avodah Zarah, I should say, which is number 27. So without further ado, here's the Hadran. And you're welcome, of course, to join. Hadran alach Masechet Shevuot v'Hadran alach v'Hadrach alan. Datan alach Masechet Shevuot v'Datan alan. V'Datach alan. Lo nitnesei minach Masechet Shevuot v'lo titnesei minan. Lo ba'alma hadin, lo ba'alma da'ate. Here told לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו שתהא תורתך אמונתנו בעולם הזה ותהא עמנו לעולם הבא. חנינא בר פפא רמי בר פפא נחמן בר פפא אחי בר פפא אבא מרי בר פפא רפרם בר פפא רחיש בר פפא סורחב בר פפא עדה בר פפא דרו בר פפא לערב נא אדוני אלוהינו את דברי תורתך בפינו ולפי עמך בית ישראל ונהיה אנחנו וצאצאינו וצאצאי עמך בית ישראל כולנו יודעי שמך ולומדי תורתך לשמה, מאוהבי תחכמי מצוותיך, כי לעולם היא לי. היא ליבי תמים בחוקיך למען לא אבוש, לעולם לא אשכח פקודיך כי בם חייתנו. חייתני. ברוך אתה אדוני למדני חוקיך, אמן 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 סלע ועד. מודים אנחנו לפניך אדוני אלוהינו ואלוהי אבותינו, ששמת חלקנו מיושבי בית המדרש, ולא שמת חלקנו מיושבי קרנות. שאנו משכימים והם משכימים, אנו משכימים לדברי תורה והם משכימים לדברים בטלים, אנו עמלים והם עמלים, אנו עמלים ומקבלים שכר, והם עמלים ואינם מקבלים שכר. אנו רצים והם רצים, אנו רצים לחיי עולם הבא, והם רצים לבאר שחת, שנאמר ואתה אלוהים תורידם לבאר שחת, אנשי דמים ומרמה לא יחצו ימיהם ואני אבטח בך. יהי רצון לפניך אדוני אלוהי, כי שם שעזרתני לסיים מסכת שבועות, כן תעזרני להתחיל מסכתות וספרים אחרים ולסיימם. ללמוד, ללמד, לשמור ולעשות ולקיים את כל דברי תלמוד תורתך באהבה, וזכור כל התנאים והמורים ותלמידי חכמים יעמוד לי ולזרעי, שלא תמוש התורה מפי ומפי זרעי וזרע זרעי עד עולם. ויתקיים בי בהתהלכך תנחה אותך בשכבך ותשמור עליך, וקיצותה היא תשיחך, כי בי ירבו ימיך ויוסיפו לך שנות חיים, אורך ימים בימינה ובשמאלה, עושר וכבוד. אדוני עוז יעמו ייתן, אדוני יברך את עמו בשלום.
Thank you, everybody, so much. Hope you're already enjoying Masechet Avodah Zarah. And we will see you in, I'm not even sure how long Masechet Avodah Zarah is.
It's not that long. We'll see you soon.
It's like a 70, 80 something. All right. Have a great day, everyone.
And a peaceful,
you.
quiet, for those of
Yeah.
you in Israel, peaceful, quiet, and for the rest of us as well.